There is one thing that many of us strive for in life, and that is to grow. We all want to be better. We want to be seen as better, but most importantly, we want to feel better. As we all know, sometimes progress is not always felt, even when it can be acknowledged. But that doesn't always mean progress isn't happening. We all have different ways of measuring progress. Some are helpful and take your goals and actual accomplishments into account. Other ways we might be measuring growth could be doing us more harm than good. Today, we are going to explore growth, how it is measured, and what it might actually mean. Class is officially in session. Lessons Reconsidered is a reflective podcast about the lessons we think we've learned and what starts to change when we take another look. I'm the Teach. On this episode, I want to spend some time with growth and what I thought it was supposed to look like, the ideas I have created in my head, or what society has told me what it should be. Let's start with an assumption I once held. All my life, I believed growth meant improvement, and it was supposed to look a certain way. That I should be getting better, more efficient, more consistent. Moving forward, growing is intentional. It is a lifelong journey filled with self discovery and making sure our actions align with our core values. It requires patience, a willingness to step outside of our comfort zone, and a commitment to learning. When this is happening, the growth will be visible. Everyone would see it and it would be felt as well. That means we would not repeat the same mistakes. Essentially, growth meant improving. It means that things that I had a problem with, I wouldn't have a problem with going forward. It meant evolution. That means the changes are definitive and absolute. This made sense because that's how growth is usually shown. We can see it, we can track it, we can measure it. There is this sudden big shift. This change is seismic and radiates in every aspect of one's life. We become more self aware and can take responsibility for our actions and behavior. We can set healthy boundaries with others and step out of our comfort zones. We are rarely in uncomfortable situations, or we can embrace those that might cause discomfort. We have evolved to handle all situations. At least that is the thought. This is the feeling. With our growth, our evolution, we can now rest. Our job in life is done. We have peaked. But I can remember moments where that didn't line up. Moments where I felt like I was doing the work, but nothing looked different. Or worse, it felt like I was repeating something. And that was frustrating because I thought I had already moved past that. I thought growth meant that you don't come back to the same place. But I did, more than once. And I didn't know what to do with that because it didn't fit the version of growth I had in my head. Growth is one of those things where we all have the same idea about what it should be, but have wildly different expectations. How we all see and feel about the success of our growth varies. What I think about your growth may be completely different from what you think about mine, and vice versa. But what happens when our growth plan is filled with unrealistic expectations? Or when we do things that hinder our growth, like procrastination or not stepping outside of our comfort zones? What happens when we aren't able to see the steps we are taking, small or large, towards our own personal growth? I know, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I know that when I have faced difficulties in life, I set unrealistic expectations. I felt the weight of life and knew that I was not fully prepared for it. There have been many times when I didn't meet expectations or when an unexpected event affected me. The toughest times or when a life event really knocks us off of our paths. These are very effective in altering our thoughts, feelings, and mood. It can create mental barriers that often change our view of growth. We can have a narrower understanding of it as a means to solve the immediate problem or concern. It becomes very one track minded. We don't set great, actionable items that address all the ways we need to grow. Instead, we focus on a very specific view. Growth should be all encompassing for the most part. In the past, I would struggle with growth because I was unaware that I needed to make goals. Not just goals, but manageable and achievable ones. This would provide me with the clear direction I needed to start the long journey of progress and growth. I needed to know what I was trying to accomplish and what I needed to do. I was having these big objectives like, I want to do this better or be better at that. I needed to break it into smaller goals and set realistic timelines. I always understood that it doesn't happen overnight, but I still expected it to happen almost immediately. Plus, there are many daily distractions and responsibilities that keep us from improving ourselves. There needs to be a commitment to the process. Consistency and discipline are required, along with time management and accountability. Habits may need to change, and time may need to be created that we sometimes do not have with everything we have to manage and think about in our day. Dramatic change doesn't come easily or quickly, and it requires a lot of work. Once I realized it was a gradual process, I was able to really begin. But I wasn't fully ready. There are many times that and I can imagine many of you can relate to, where we have made false starts. We think we are ready to embrace a change, but we really aren't. There are many times when I was so comfortable in my situation that it was hard for me to step outside of my familiar comfort zone. It wasn't just hard, it was terrifying. The routines were comfortable, even if they were unfulfilling. There have been many times in my life when I was not ready to fully evolve. There were also times when I also didn't fully embrace my efforts to evolve, and I didn't focus on what was actually necessary to grow. There have been times when I was just trying to feel good enough, so I wasn't fully committed. I would make incremental progress, and then my mind would be convinced that that was enough. I would hit one goal, mostly a goal that could be viewed externally, and feel like I did enough. On the opposite end of that, when I wanted to try to cheat, I would move the goalpost. There were times when I would reach a milestone, but something inside me would tell me this isn't enough. My mind would convince me that I need to strive for more or that there is more to be done, leading into a cycle of perpetual dissatisfaction. I couldn't avoid the self criticism that was harsh and unforgiving. It kept me in a loop of feeling like I had to do more rather than pausing to see how far I'd come. It stopped me from celebrating the little wins along the way. Thinking about it now, the times I struggled the most were when the growth was not as visible to others as I may have wanted it to be. One example I can relate to in my life is going through a breakup. Besides the fact that it sucks and it can be some of the most emotional pain one can feel, when you go through a breakup, it affects the nervous system and it plays on your insecurities and our sense of being wanted or loved. It can be very disorienting and extremely uncomfortable. I know at times when I've had major breakups, I wanted to win the breakup. I wanted my growth to be witnessed by the person I felt hurt by. I wanted to show that I can be better than what I perceived myself to be. I wanted my growth to be seen, but mostly through optics. I wanted to be seen as having grown, but was so stuck in what growth actually was. I had a specific view on growth. I just wanted her to know I am doing better, to inflict some type of reaction from her. Like us all, and I know you may have done it, and if you haven't done it, you are much better than me. I fantasized about what it would look like if I would ever run into her again. She would see me and she would instantly realize her mistake. She would be crippled with guilt for a breakup happening and would visibly be shaken. Maybe even call me because she wants to get back together, which leaves me with the choice I may not have had before about our relationship. My motivations for growth weren't about wanting to grow, but about dealing with a particular difficult situation and my need for revenge. I didn't realize what I needed to do. I just wanted her and everyone who knew about the breakup to perceive me as doing good, maybe even better than her. Breakups, whether romantic, friendship, or otherwise, are extremely painful. Our self worth and identities can be lost in it. There are always lessons to be learned along the way. I, sadly, have lost many relationships. Even as I admit that, my heart hurts with the memories of all the people who have been significant in my life. These are people I have loved and cared about, and now we are no longer in each other's lives. I had to understand that there are plenty of blame to go around, regardless of what I may have felt. Growing is reflecting and learning the lessons about how I showed up, what I allowed, and how open I was to listening to how my behavior affected them. Losing people made me change how I viewed myself. I stopped connecting with the passions I once had, and many things were put on the back burner. My self worth was affected because I was unable to engage in the hobbies that helped me self soothe. I fell into a state of self pity. So, what shifted? What I notice now is that growth doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it just looks like revisiting something. Sometimes it looks like noticing something you may not have noticed before. Even if the situation looks the same, that shift is harder to recognize, but it matters. Repeating the same mistakes or being in the same situations isn't bad per se. It gives us a chance to actually practice what we've learned and how far and how much we have grown. There also needs to be a shift in our mindsets. We need to shift our mindset from surviving to thriving. And boy, I'm going to tell you, that is a hard, hard one, especially if you have been living in survival mode all or most of your life. As obviously, that shift is not an easy one. How does one change from survival mode if this is the only thing you know? How can we understand what it means to thrive? What should that actually look like? To be honest, I'm still unsure about how this should look. How to trust this kind of growth, especially when it's not obvious, when it doesn't really look like improvement, or when it fails. What to do when we are questioning the path of self improvement? How do we embrace change and set our own expectations for growth rather than others' expectations? How do we celebrate our progress and little wins when our minds play tricks on us? How do we remain strong despite the many things that society has thrown our way to make it truly hard for us to make the growth we desperately want to make? I wanted to get this off my chest and see what stayed. That's where I'll leave it. As I've been doing the last couple of episodes, I'm going to include some reflection questions here at the end for you to ask yourself and follow up on. I hope that it gives you deeper insight into how you relate and engage with this topic. Reflection questions. Where in your life have you expected growth to look more obvious than it actually does? What is one place where you may be growing, even if it still feels familiar or unfinished? How much of your idea of growth is shaped by whether other people can see it? Where have you moved the goalpost instead of allowing yourself to acknowledge progress? What small sign of growth might deserve more credit than you are actually giving it? What I've been doing for the last couple of episodes is I've been having this little section. I'm going to call this segment Thoughts of the Teach, or Thoughts from the Teach, actually. Thoughts from the Teach. And I have been using this as another way to reflect on the episode or reflect on the topics. And obviously, there's no better episode to do this than an episode about growth. Actually, hold on, this doesn't feel right. Give me 1 second. This actually feels better. This feels more in line with growth. Also, I think there's a better name for this section. And instead of calling it Thoughts of the Teach, I'm going to call it Musings of the Teach. I think it goes better on, and this will be the new segment that I add to where at the end I really share my thoughts, my feelings, and you actually can see my emotions. For those of you who are audio only, you may not know what just happened, but I am now going to be doing video because it's the next logical step in growth, in the growth of the podcast. The transition from audio to video, or just a static image to video, is very necessary, and it's more in line with where I'm trying to go and the direction I'm trying to take the podcast. I felt this episode was the best episode to do it because it's an episode about growth, and the biggest step that I need to do and I need to take is to grow. Now, obviously, this video is new for me, so it's going to be a little bit tricky for me to use. There's going to be some growing pains, but once I hit the stride, I'm very excited about it. Please give me your feedback, give me your thoughts, give me your opinions. Keep the opinions, honest, but don't be too honest. Don't be like, you look stupid. I mean, I might. That might be a look. This might be my face, but I can't really help that. So if you have some feedback for me or any pointers, anything to help me help to grow the podcast, they're always appreciated. After this, I'll share out many ways for you to reach me, and we'll go from there. One thing I do want to say is I got some feedback from my sister, and she was saying that I'm not really showcasing, or I haven't been really showcasing my personality in this. It's been really stiff and slow, and I totally agree with her. So I'm going to try to incorporate more. Yes, it's a very serious topic that we're talking about as far as our own growth and our own reflections. And I want to make sure that we are doing that. But also, I want to be able to be more myself and not feel boxed in. The growth has been very, very, very helpful. And I could feel the growth from podcast episode to podcast episode. So I'm really excited about that. But I wanted to try to steer this into a conversation about being honest and the fear of being seen, right? Because I am putting myself out there. You can all see me. I can't see you, but you could see me. And, there is some fear to that, but we have to always fight through our fears. And part of my own growth, even when I started this podcast a couple of months ago, was I wanted to be a voice of support, but also remain anonymous. And I don't think that's the best way to connect with you all if we're going to take this journey of reflection together and we're going to grow in this journey of reflection, it's important that we take the steps, that we step out of our comfort zone. So here is me making that attempt to step out of my comfort zone. But I wanted to really focus on something I talked about in this episode, which was I talked about relationships and people that I have lost or people that have, are not here anymore for whatever the reason. And it is important for me to note that regardless to it, the fact that I can sit here and I can reflect on it in a way to where it's not just in anger or even in jest. It's really to say, hey, these people were in my life. They were important to me. And we have parted for whatever reason. And that's part of the growth of being able to understand and identify where we have and how far we've come. And that's always important is, again, we have to celebrate the small wins and even being able to acknowledge that people have came and they've gone, and you hold on to good memories or the memories that mattered or how significant they were in your life. That's really where we are, and that's really what's important. But it also can bring pain, and being able to identify it and understand it is going to be super, super, super important. So everybody is growing at a different pace, and it's important to know that you are exactly where you need to be in your level of growth. Nobody's behind, nobody's ahead. We are all exactly where we need to be as far as growing, and your growth is going to be contingent on how much time, energy, and effort you have to put in order to get you to that next level. And sometimes you may grow and feel like you're making the progress, but you'll stumble, you'll fall, you'll pick yourself back up, and you'll try again. There is no wrong way to grow. I'm going to leave it there. However this episode may speak to you, please reach out on the socials. You can find me on mostly all platforms at Lessons Reconsidered. I have an email at lessonsreconsidered@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram at Lessons Reconsidered. I'm on Facebook at Lessons Reconsidered. I'm on YouTube at Lessons Reconsidered. I think you're getting the understanding about it. Except for X, I'm working on my X, but it's not Lessons Reconsidered. It's like Lessons Reconsidered. Couldn't fit all the username is really long for X. And X is a platform I'm still trying to understand and really figure out if I really want to put this out there on X. But one platform that I am very active on is Substack. And Substack, always every Tuesday, there is a preview of what the episode topic will be for Thursday, which is, so Tuesday had this, which we talked about growth. The reflection questions are always presented on Tuesday, and they'll pass on, and I'll reshare them here on Thursday. But if you can get to the Substack, if you could subscribe, if you can like, if you can share, if you can help build this community of reflectors, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this podcast. Please don't forget to support Matt Mogson. You can find him and all of his incredible music on Apple Music, on Spotify, on YouTube, on, I might be missing some, but if you look up Matt Mogson, you can find all of that information. Thank you for taking the time. Pause. And I want to give you my catchphrase, which is, remember, there is power in the pause.
Tear down those walls, break down those barriers. Life is just beginning for you. No greater power in this world.